"We can split up if you want, but I want to stay with our son," John said firmly after scolding me. He seemed satisfied as he took a deep breath. As I thought about how to respond, our son, who had been standing by, stepped forward. "Dad, if you don't know, let me tell you," he said, pointing at his father's mistress. Our son's words made me smile mischievously. "My name's Jennifer. I'm 42 years old and work as a freelance artist. I've been married for 15 years and have an 8th grade son. Since we got married, John has struggled to hold down a job. So I've been the main breadwinner, juggling work, household chores, and raising our child. I've had to work from home because John's jobs were unstable, leaving me to care for our son. It was tough at first, but now I have a stable income from illustrating educational materials, thanks to referrals from previous clients. With David getting older, I can work from home and go out for projects a few times a week. So the three of us are living together peacefully, but there's something on my mind about John. Despite my steady income, he doesn't seem motivated to find a new job and seems lost. I'm concerned about him being 44 and not having a clear direction. He rarely works full-time, so he should have free time, but he doesn't help much around the house or with our son David. This has been the pattern since we got married, so I've stopped expecting much from him. He doesn't seem interested in David, who's going through tough teenage years, which bothers me. David isn't very talkative, but he sometimes helps with chores without me asking. Maybe he's learned from seeing me manage work and chores since he was young. David has matured a lot, but John hasn't. Lately, John's been coming home late more often, adding to my unease and frustration. It's natural to feel suspicious. Even on days when he's not supposed to work, he claims to have work-related reasons to leave. But I doubt he's secretly job hunting without telling us. There are some things that make me feel suspicious. Recently, John hasn't been spending much time looking after David. He's taken a sudden interest in driving him to and from his basketball club, even though David is just in 8th grade. We have a rule in our household to always drop off and pick up due to safety concerns in today's world. I've always had to fit this around my work schedule, but John started offering to do it lately. While I appreciate the help, something didn't sit right with me. My suspicion grew when I happened to pass by the basketball club one day. I decided to take a different route home after shopping and saw John there, despite him saying he'd be late due to work out of town. He was chatting happily with a woman who seemed to work at the facility. As I stood there, the woman noticed me and asked if I was David's mom. I awkwardly acknowledged her, realizing I hadn't remembered all the staff's faces. I chatted with her briefly, ignoring my husband's tense demeanor. The woman introduced herself as Jessica, but I found it odd that she didn't mention her role with my child. Seeing my confusion, John seemed eager to end their conversation. On the way home, there was an uncomfortable silence between us, and it felt like he was intentionally avoiding me. Despite his seemingly cheerful conversation with Jessica earlier, he walked beside me with his head down, avoiding eye contact. I could sense that something wasn't right. His recent late returns, sudden interest in doing drop-offs and pickups, and strange behavior after being seen with Jessica made me suspect that there was more to their relationship. Could he be having an affair with her? Deep down, I had felt a shift ever since he started taking over the transportation duties. He had become distant from me. That day, when our son returned from the basketball club, I casually asked about his father's behavior, but all I got was a dismissive, "I don't know." It seemed our son was frustrated with his dad's insistence on driving him every day. Forcing our reluctant son to go along with it didn't sit well with me. I had been harboring suspicions for a while now, and it seemed they were about to be confirmed. I was just passing by, so I thought I'd drop in. "David, how are you feeling?" Jessica said as she entered our home. "Thank you for coming all this way, Jessica." "Now please, have some coffee," I replied politely. Jessica, whom I hadn't suspected of being involved with my husband, started finding reasons to visit our home more frequently. She would mention our son occasionally, but it was clear her real motive was something else. Her visits always coincided with the times my husband was home, never when my son or I were alone. Watching them chat cheerfully in the living room confirmed my suspicions of John's infidelity. About a month after I first noticed his odd behavior, he began coming home later and later, sometimes disappearing for days at a time. When I confronted him about sneaking in late one night, he joked about it, but his reaction changed when I mentioned cheating. He snapped at me, telling me to mind my own business and focus on my work. His irritation was evident as he stormed out of the room. I was angry that he acted as if he was doing everything when, in reality, he left all the housework and parenting to me. "What's wrong, Mom?" David, who had been witnessing our arguments, spoke up unexpectedly. "Oh, it's nothing. Why are you still awake?" I deflected, but David seemed hesitant before finally opening up about his suspicions regarding Jessica, whom he believed might be involved with his father. He found her clingy and irritating, especially since she would come to our house uninvited. It was a relief to know that I wasn't alone in disliking her presence, but the situation was far from resolved. When I returned home from a client meeting, I heard laughter coming from the living room. It was John and Jessica. David must have stayed in his room as he didn't join them. As I entered the living room, both John and Jessica turned to look at me. John appeared uncomfortable as usual, while Jessica greeted me with a confident smile. "Welcome back, David's mom," Jessica greeted me as I bumped into John, who then invited me inside. I couldn't shake off the unease I felt about Jessica addressing my husband by his name. "Oh, we seem to run into each other often, don't we? Isn't work keeping you busy?" I retorted with a touch of sarcasm. Jessica replied with a smug expression. "Well, part of my job involves visiting homes." I wanted to lash out at her for being so presumptuous. "What part of your job involves critiquing people's homes?" I wanted to ask, but I held my tongue. Instead, she commented on the cozy atmosphere of our house, insinuating that it wasn't kept very clean. Her sly grin made it clear she was enjoying pointing out my shortcomings. My husband didn't defend me. Instead, he chuckled along with Jessica, even adding that I should do better with the housework since I'm always home. It frustrated me that I was the only one being mocked. Feeling overwhelmed, I quickly retreated to the bedroom, still holding my belongings, overcome with frustration, sadness, and embarrassment. I worried that Jessica might replace me in my family eventually. If she wasn't involved with my son's basketball team, I might have confronted her. But I hesitated for my son's sake. Despite my concerns, my husband and Jessica continued their rendezvous, openly displaying their relationship while I remained silent. People told me they often met under the guise of discussing our son's education. Determined to uncover the truth, I searched for evidence during my husband's absences and discovered plenty of proof of his infidelity. Despite his claims that we couldn't afford gifts for birthdays or anniversaries, I found receipts for motel stays, lavish dinners, and expensive jewelry in his coat pocket. I even found receipts for places he said were too expensive for us to visit. It pained me to think he spent money on his mistress, but not on his wife. Despite my hurt, I stayed composed and continued gathering evidence. Divorce crossed my mind, but I wanted to wait until David graduated high school. Nevertheless, I resolved to gather as much evidence as possible to protect myself. I wondered where my husband got the money for his affair. Even if he used his entire salary, it would be challenging to sustain. Lost in thought, I suddenly remembered our college fund account for David. A wave of dread washed over me as I checked its transactions, revealing large withdrawals over the past few months. I had opened the savings account specifically to secure my son's education funds just in case. It had been a while since I last checked it, and I was shocked to discover that the balance had significantly decreased. Despite meticulously managing our credit card usage and monthly bills, I had neglected to monitor the savings account regularly. The realization hit me hard, and I struggled to steady my trembling hands. The money he spent on his affair came from the savings I had diligently set aside for our son. At that moment, I no longer cared who he was having an affair with. What I couldn't forgive was that he had used the money meant for our child's future for his own selfish desires. His betrayal against me as his wife paled in comparison to the betrayal against our son. Suppressing my boiling anger, I resolved to continue pretending that everything was normal. I didn't want our son, who was at such an impressionable age, to catch on. I chose to shoulder all the problems and worries alone, not wanting to burden our hardworking son with unnecessary stress. However, the strain began to take its toll on me, leading to small mistakes in my household chores and work. Even Mrs. Smith, a longtime client, noticed my worn-out state and expressed her concern. While I struggled, my husband seemed to be enjoying himself with his mistress more than ever. Without my interference, he appeared more relaxed. Sooner or later, our son David would inevitably become aware of the issues surrounding our family. Recognizing my subdued demeanor, David silently offered to help with the laundry, expressing his understanding of the situation. His quiet support warmed my heart and fueled my anger toward the traitor who had jeopardized the money I had saved for our son. There had to be consequences for his betrayal. I contemplated reaching out to someone who had offered to support me, clenching my fists as I swore vengeance against my husband and his mistress. One evening, my husband abruptly announced that he would be away for almost a week due to work. He insisted that he was attending a training program in another state, but I had my doubts about the truthfulness of his explanation. The restaurant chain where he worked only had locations within our state, and there were no offices or branches elsewhere. I distinctly remembered him boasting about this perk when he first took the job, emphasizing that there would be no need to relocate out of state. While my son and I engaged in conversation with him, we both harbored skepticism about his story. My son casually mentioned, one of the staff members from my club is also off work for a week around this time. I don't know if she's going on vacation, but it seems unusual. Going on a week-long vacation requires some cash. Despite our casual tone, my husband appeared startled by our observation. Until then, he had been proudly discussing the rigorous training program he was supposedly attending, but suddenly fell silent and glanced down at his smartphone anxiously. Ever since I became certain of my husband's infidelity, I had been monitoring both him and Jessica closely. I even hired a private investigator who confirmed that Jessica, who worked at the basketball facility, was also taking a week off. I had known all along that my husband's supposed business trip was merely a cover for a romantic getaway with Jessica. While I could have caught him red-handed, I had other plans in mind. I had been scheming since learning of my husband's intentions to travel with Jessica. Naturally, I didn't intend to proceed without my son's agreement, but fortunately, he was on board with my plan. On the day of their trip, I bid farewell to my eager husband, and then my son and I set about cleaning the house. With the assistance of some relatives who came over, we also began packing. Our plan was to relocate while my husband was away and stay elsewhere until we found a new home, temporarily staying with some accommodating relatives. Upon learning of our situation, our relatives, enraged by my husband's actions yet concerned for David, graciously offered us a place to stay. Additionally, I safeguarded our savings by transferring all remaining funds to my personal account, ensuring that my husband couldn't access it. As we made preparations, I noticed my husband's belongings were still in the house as we prepared to leave. It didn't feel right to abandon his things, so after some consideration, I decided to send them to a specific location. With Mrs. Smith's approval, I arranged for a pickup service to collect the boxes. Surveying the neat and tidy house my son and I now shared, we exchanged a satisfied smile. A few days after we had relocated, my phone suddenly rang, startling me in the midst of our temporary stay at my relative's place. Seeing my husband's name on the caller ID, I couldn't help but sigh involuntarily. "Hello, Jennifer," he greeted me. "Hey, what's going on?" "It's the middle of the day," I responded, already anticipating his request. "Actually, during my training, I ran out of money. Can you transfer some funds to my account?" His voice sounded panicked, confirming my suspicions. No wonder our savings account was drained. He couldn't access any funds. His desperation was palpable, more so than usual. Was it because he didn't want to appear inadequate in front of Jessica? Feeling exasperated, I declined his plea, almost amused by his predicament. Why do you use the account you always dip into? There should still be plenty left, I suggested with a smirk. After a brief silence, he erupted into angry shouts. Are you okay with me being broke? He yelled, but I refused to entertain his outburst. Your training will be over soon. You'll manage without money, I countered, goading him further. Suddenly, a frantic female voice could be heard in the background. It was the moment I had been waiting for. Surprised by Jessica's voice in the background, my husband abruptly ended the call. With everything falling into place, the next day my son and I headed to a specific location. A grand mansion with immaculate gardens, clearly the residence of affluent individuals. As if on cue, we found my husband and his mistress in a room. My husband looked terrified as he sat on the floor, offering apologies to someone. That someone, with a stern expression, was Mrs. Smith, a longtime client of mine and the principal of the middle school attended by my son David. Over the years, we had developed a close bond, sharing personal troubles and trusting each other implicitly. My husband's actions have caused trouble, and I must apologize. I began taking responsibility for my husband's misconduct. It turned out that Jessica, who had been on a trip with my husband, was confronted by her parents about a package she had received at home. She had no choice but to return home immediately. And naturally, she insisted that my husband accompany her. Hearing Mrs. Smith's words, my husband trembled with fear. Mrs. Smith had been deeply concerned about my declining health since learning of John's affair. When I finally confided in her about the affair, and she discovered that her daughter was the mistress, she was devastated. However, Mrs. Smith was determined to make amends for her daughter's actions and had been cooperating with me ever since. She offered a heartfelt apology, gesturing toward the piles of boxes, and sternly reprimanded her daughter. You should be ashamed of yourself for coveting what isn't yours, she scolded. Jessica's attempts to defend herself fell flat, claiming it was all a misunderstanding and questioning the sanity of the sender of numerous packages to their house. Turning to my husband, Jessica pleaded for support, but he remained silent under my disapproving gaze. With a panicked expression, Jessica confessed that she had no idea her mother worked with me and never intended for her strict mother to discover her affair with a married man. Mrs. Smith is a teacher, and she has very strict rules about what's right and wrong. She's not likely to forgive her daughter for what she did, but I didn't feel sorry for Jessica at all. I want you to say sorry, Mrs. Smith said firmly. My daughter has to make up for what she did. Even if it takes her whole life, she has to do the right thing. Why is this happening to me? Jessica cried, but I didn't pay attention to her. Instead, I looked at my husband, who was standing silently beside her. Don't you have something to say? I asked him, feeling angry. Then, unexpectedly, David, who was standing behind me, spoke up. Jessica isn't just a regular worker. She's only an intern at the club, David said firmly. And don't you dare try to be friendly with me again. Your flirting with other men is gross. It turned out that Jessica wasn't even officially hired at the club. My husband always thought Jessica was very skilled and passionate about working with students, which I found funny. It turned out they both had secrets. Seeing Jessica's shocked face, I decided to give her some advice before I left. Did you know that I pay for everything? The rent, our living expenses, and even David's school fees. I told her. John has been doing odd jobs for years, but you wouldn't know that. Hey, hold on a minute. John tried to interrupt, but it was too late. Jessica was so surprised by what I said that she collapsed on the spot. It turned out John had been pretending to have plenty of money, hiding the fact that I was the one supporting our family. He wanted to impress Jessica, so he made it seem like he had everything under control. He made me look lazy and useless in front of her. Mrs. Smith was devastated when she found out the truth about John and Jessica. When David and I happily returned home, we saw John looking defeated, with Jessica and all their things. Mrs. Smith had kicked him out. Months passed since we moved. Following Mrs. Smith's advice, I hired a good lawyer to handle my divorce. Everything went smoothly, and I felt relieved. I even found out that the savings I had put aside for David's education could be used as child support. As for Jessica, rumors spread quickly at the basketball club about her affair with a parent. She lost her job and tried to get help from her parents, but Mrs. Smith wasn't willing to help. Jessica ended up alone and confused. She left John because he didn't have any money, and now he's trying to make things right. But David and I aren't interested. Mrs. Smith felt guilty for what her daughter did to our family. I reassured her and thanked her for helping me find a new job. Life has been good with just David and me, and I'm proud to be David's mom. David's simple words brought tears to my eyes. I want to keep working as an illustrator, but most importantly, I want to be the best mom I can be for David.
Given that I'll be the primary inhabitant of our new abode, it only makes sense that the largest room becomes mine, she declared confidently. From that moment onward, she staked her claim on our new home with the assertiveness of a seasoned owner. Her brazen remarks ignited a storm of indignation within me. Pardon me, but I'm curious, where exactly would your room be if you're so insistent? I countered, unable to contain my irritation. Upon hearing my retort, my sister-in-law flushed crimson and launched towards me. I'm Sophia, a 32-year-old corporate professional. George, my husband, and I have been inseparable since high school, celebrating 7 years of marriage. Perhaps owing to our extensive shared history, our relationship resembles that of an old married couple more than most couples our age. Nevertheless, I can't fathom being with anyone but George. I've always had a great rapport with my in-laws, and presently we find ourselves cohabiting for various reasons. With my father-in-law on the brink of retirement and my mother-in-law juggling part-time work, we share household responsibilities and contribute to the financial upkeep of the household. Things were cruising along smoothly until an unexpected visitor disrupted the tranquility. One lazy Sunday, as we savored the serenity of the weekend, the jeering sound of a truck reversing shattered the peace. Curiosity piqued, we exchanged puzzled glances. Did anyone order something? As she barged in with an entourage of movers, my heart sank. My room's on the right, second floor, she declared, oblivious to our surprise. Oh, and I seem to have misplaced the key. Could someone let me in? A chill ran down my spine at the unmistakable voice. As we approached the front door, there stood Charlotte, my long-absent sister-in-law, flanked by movers lugging cardboard boxes. Wait a moment, Charlotte. What's the meaning of this sudden appearance without so much as a heads-up? And who are these people with you? I questioned, a mix of surprise and irritation coloring my tone. Charlotte seemed genuinely perplexed by our reaction. What do you mean? I quit my job and found myself jobless, so I'm moving back home. Since it's my parents' house, I didn't think it necessary to inform you guys beforehand. Heh, she explained with a carefree shrug. We stood there dumbfounded, while the movers behind her exchanged uncertain glances. Never mind them, just get on with moving my stuff in, Charlotte instructed nonchalantly, striding confidently into our home and up the stairs. Ha, my old room's been turned into a storage space. Get this stuff out of here. Her sharp voice echoed from the second floor, leaving us bewildered. What do we do now? I turned to my husband and in-laws, their expressions mirroring my own frustration. Let's hear her out first and then figure out a plan to get her to leave. Given her stubborn nature, she won't budge if we simply ask her to, my father-in-law suggested wearily, his demeanor suddenly aged. Reluctantly, we piled Charlotte's belongings in the hallway, buying time as we deliberated our next steps. Charlotte's petulant expression was all too familiar, her sulking demeanor grating on my nerves. Oh, and why are George and his wife here? Are you guys crashing with mom and dad because you're broke or something? She jabbed, her words a sharp reminder of her tactlessness. Charlotte's derisive snort dredged up a flood of unpleasant memories. She was 2 years my junior, yet my disdain for her stretched back to her high school days. Our shared alma mater was the source of our initial acquaintance. I vividly recalled Charlotte's audacious approach during our student years. You're George's girlfriend, right? Well, since I'm your sister-in-law, why not lend me some money? She had brazenly demanded. From that very first encounter, she had shown a blatant disregard for boundaries, addressing me disrespectfully despite my seniority. Her audacity didn't stop at her presumptuous request. She even had the nerve to casually ask her own older brother for money. My response was immediate and firm. Absolutely not. Though she bore the title of my boyfriend's sister, I refused to indulge her entitled behavior. Charlotte's reaction to my refusal was predictably disdainful. "Geez, you're so stingy," she retorted, her words dripping with disdain. "Damn," she shot me a disdainful glance before striding away. "You're the crazy one here." That encounter marked my unsettling introduction to my sister-in-law, Charlotte. As it turned out, her behavior towards her own family was even more troubling, a fact my in-laws had been grappling with for quite some time. Her tumultuous history in school was a constant source of concern, prompting frequent summons for her beleaguered parents. Even after graduating, Charlotte remained adrift, her days characterized by idleness and mischief. At our wedding, her antics reached a new low. Her excessive drinking led to a state of inebriation, during which she shamelessly flirted with any man who caught her eye. And as if that weren't enough, she took it upon herself to critique my bridal attire with a pointed, mocking remark. "That dress doesn't suit you one bit," she jeered, followed by a burst of laughter. It was a moment I'd sooner forget. Following her disruptive behavior that day, Charlotte's relationship with her own family deteriorated to the brink of estrangement. Her departure, fueled by anger, left a bitter aftertaste, yet to everyone's astonishment, she resurfaced years later as though nothing had transpired, leaving our family utterly bewildered. "It's because our lease at the old apartment was up. But our new house isn't ready yet, so Dad graciously let us stay here," George clarified, casting a fond glance at Charlotte. "You're building a house, George." "Impressive," Charlotte remarked, her tone laced with sarcasm. "When George and Sophia's new house is ready, we'll be moving out too, Charlotte," my mother-in-law stated icily. "How can you be so heartless toward a daughter who's just endured a breakup and is jobless? Is that how you define motherhood?" "Moving into George's new house signifies a fresh start for us," my father-in-law added, his voice tinged with resolve. "You've always favored George over me," Charlotte shot back at her parents, her footsteps heavy as she stormed up the stairs and out of sight. According to Charlotte, she had experienced a breakup, lost her way, and found herself returning home in search of solace. Since that day, Charlotte's presence shattered the tranquility of our family life. Our lifestyles clashed on multiple fronts. Her late-night, boisterous phone conversations with friends often sparked heated arguments between her and George. Despite shirking any household responsibilities, Charlotte never hesitated to voice her culinary preferences. "Fish? I hate them. Too many pesky bones. Can't you whip up some meatloaf instead?" she'd interject. Fed up with her intrusion, I finally confronted Charlotte. "If you crave meatloaf, kindly prepare it yourself or perhaps contribute to the household expenses. How does that sound?" Charlotte's perpetual attitude towards me only exacerbated the tension. My disdain for her ran deep, so I maintained a formal demeanor whenever interacting with her, a subtle reminder that I wasn't one of her casual acquaintances. Yet she persisted in addressing me only as "Hey" or "George's wife." In response, I resolved to reciprocate by addressing her solely as "Hey." Fully aware of her aversion to fish, I confronted her about her lack of contribution to household expenses. "Why should I chip in for my own living expenses? You're nothing but a leech, surviving off George's earnings and my family's support. Don't act so entitled." Charlotte's audacity left me speechless. "Seriously, is that how you perceive it? And how's the job search and apartment hunt going?" "Our new home is nearly ready," I countered. Her face flushed momentarily before she retorted with a smug grin. "Don't worry, I've got it all figured out," her tone dripping with self-satisfaction. In the midst of our heated exchange, my mother-in-law, Susan, appeared visibly concerned. "Sophia, dear, I'm truly sorry if Charlotte is causing you distress. Are you all right?" she inquired, her worry evident in her voice. Dealing with Charlotte had taken its toll on everyone, her stubbornness making it nearly impossible to reason with her. "I'm all right, Susan, but you should take a break too. It seems like Charlotte has gotten the wrong end of the stick." "Is everything all right?" I asked, concern evident in my voice. Susan's response was a heavy sigh. "Even her father and I can't get through to her. She just barricades herself in her room and tells us to stop badgering her. I sometimes wonder if she'd emerge if we set off a bug bomb," Susan quipped, eliciting a chuckle from me. After days of anticipation, our dream home was finally complete. George and I had poured our hearts and souls into saving for the down payment, and now the kitchen bore my personal touch, while the bathroom had been transformed into a haven for my husband's love of long baths. It truly was our dream abode. As we immersed ourselves in the joy of unpacking and settling in, the doorbell interrupted our reverie. Expecting George's parents, I glanced at the monitor to find Charlotte tagging along. I really don't want her invading our new space, I muttered, unable to suppress a grimace. Charlotte swaggered into our freshly minted abode, her demeanor oozing with arrogance. George really outdid himself. This place is quite spacious. Nothing beats a brand new home, she proclaimed boldly. She proceeded to fling open doors to various rooms without so much as a by your leave. My irritation reached its peak, and I was on the verge of giving her a piece of my mind when George's father intervened. Hey, that's impolite, he scolded her sternly. Unfazed, Charlotte pouted and retorted, what's the big deal? This is going to be my place now, isn't it? George wasted no time in shutting down her presumptuousness. Cut the nonsense. You don't have a room here, do you? He snapped. But Charlotte persisted, undeterred by George's firm tone. If my parents are moving in here, then technically, this becomes their house, right? So I do have a right to be here, she argued brazenly. We stood there, dumbfounded by her audacity. It became painfully clear that Charlotte had been eyeing our home as her own from the very beginning. Furthermore, she boldly asserted, since I'll be the one spending the most time at home, the largest room here belongs to me. Charlotte's audacious declaration triggered something within me. Your room? I echoed incredulously. Let's see, shall we? With a calm demeanor, I gestured towards the storage shed outside, typically reserved for garden tools. Even if I were to go out of my way, the only space I could possibly arrange for you would be that old shed. And naturally, you'd still be expected to pay rent. Frankly, I'd rather not have you in our new home at all. Could you please leave? Charlotte's face flushed crimson upon hearing my words. Are you serious? She exclaimed, making a move toward me. Fortunately, my husband George intervened swiftly. That's enough, Charlotte, he interjected firmly. Stop causing unnecessary trouble. In stark contrast to his sister's tumultuous nature, George remained composed and level-headed. The only one he'd ever raise his voice against is this woman, Charlotte, who never seems to have any respect for her older brother, George retorted firmly. As our father-in-law's authoritative voice boomed down, even Charlotte fell silent. Charlotte, cut the theatrics and listen up. We're not moving in here, and you need to come to terms with the fact that our old home is gone, George asserted. I couldn't help but stifle a chuckle as I glanced at Charlotte, whose expression resembled that of a startled deer caught in headlights. From the outset, Charlotte seemed to assume that George and I, along with her parents, would continue living together in our new abode. However, that wasn't the case. We had been informed some time ago that our parents were planning to sell the family home and relocate to the countryside. The reason was plain and simple. We're just tired of dealing with Charlotte's antics all the time. We want to enjoy our retirement in peace, our mother-in-law had expressed her frustration. Charlotte had stormed out of their old home, declaring, I never want to set foot in this house again. I don't consider you guys as parents to me. Just disappear already. Living with Charlotte had taken a heavy toll on my in-laws. Her volatile temperament had led to numerous conflicts, some of which even resulted in legal disputes. Despite her reckless behavior, Charlotte remained unrepentant, leaving her parents to foot the bill for settlements. To cover these expenses, our mother-in-law had taken up part-time work, the financial burden imposed by Charlotte weighing heavily on the family. George and I had done our best to support them, striving to maintain some semblance of peace in our lives amidst the chaos. However, Charlotte, seemingly oblivious to the havoc she had wreaked, showed no gratitude towards her parents. Instead, she only sought their assistance when it suited her own needs. My frustration with her behavior had reached its breaking point. Then I'll just move into your new house with you guys, or I'll end up on the streets, Charlotte finally admitted, a hint of panic evident in her voice as she confronted the truth. Enough, Charlotte. The answer is a resounding no. We've tried to reason with you countless times, but you've refused to listen. Did you honestly believe we overlook everything simply because we're your parents? We're not immune to hurt, Charlotte. We have emotions too. And let's not forget your own words. You guys are no parents of mine. Just disappear already. Our mother-in-law's tone was icy as she addressed Charlotte, whose expression betrayed a mix of shock and realization. Observing Charlotte's crumbling facade, George and I exchanged a knowing glance. Dad, Charlotte's return wasn't prompted by heartbreak or job loss. Sophia and I are fully aware of the truth, George asserted, causing Charlotte to visibly pale. In reality, Charlotte was involved with a married colleague, he continued. She knew about his marital status but chose to continue the affair nonetheless. And when his wife discovered the truth, the affair imploded. Both Charlotte and her lover lost their jobs due to the scandal. They're divorced now, and coincidentally, your lover's wife, who happens to be my friend, crossed paths with me recently. Seeing her after such a long time, I was taken aback by how much weight she had lost. Enjoy your role as a homewrecker. I couldn't help but lash out. You know there's a special place in hell for people like you. Tears threatened to spill as I grappled with the weight of the situation. My husband and I had discussed it, but we hadn't broached the topic with my in-laws yet. We were afraid of upsetting them. No, it's not like that. I fell in love with him, and I couldn't help it. Charlotte defended herself with the same tired excuses that cheaters often use, her gaze chillingly indifferent. Glancing at my in-laws, I could see the fury in their eyes. Without a word, they swiftly escorted Charlotte back to their home. Later, my in-laws informed me that my sister-in-law had resorted to doing household chores in a desperate attempt to gain their approval for moving into their new home. However, their sentiments remained unchanged. Pack your things and leave, my father-in-law repeated like a broken record. Why? I've been working hard around the house. I've been doing laundry and vacuuming. What more do you want? Charlotte finally erupted. There's nothing special about what you're doing. It's basic self-care. Did you expect to be praised for that? You're an adult, my mother-in-law retorted sharply. My sister-in-law blushed, adding a layer of embarrassment to her already wounded pride. I already made my will. All inheritance will go to George. There isn't much left because of you. You've been written out of the will. It's likely to be approved by the court, my father-in-law declared, leaving my sister-in-law visibly stunned. As my in-law's moving day approached, coinciding with my father-in-law's retirement, my sister-in-law had drastically downsized her possessions to just one suitcase. According to my mother-in-law, she had sold off most of her belongings for cash. As we bid farewell to my in-laws and turned to head back to her car, my sister-in-law inexplicably followed us. What's the matter? I asked, puzzled by her presence. I have nowhere else to go, she admitted, her voice breaking. Please, I want to live in your house too. I'll take the small room. But more than her plea, it was the term sis that sent shivers down my spine. I glanced at George, and it was clear he shared my sentiments. Hell no, live with us. Not in your wildest dreams, he retorted bluntly as we made our way to the car and drove off without a second thought. A few days later, while enjoying a quiet day at home, the doorbell interrupted our peace. Seeing the figure on the other side, we both let out a resigned sigh. Stop bothering us. Do you want us to call the cops? I warned as I opened the door, only to find my sister-in-law standing there, her desperation evident as she knelt before me. Please let me stay. I've been bouncing between hotel rooms and odd jobs, but I can't keep living like this, she pleaded. My husband and I were taken aback by the depths of her self-imposed predicament. I don't care. We're not family anymore, I asserted, attempting to close the door. However, she clung to it stubbornly. Just give me some money. I've maxed out my credit cards, assuming my parents would bail me out again. And I have alimony to pay, you know. If your friend is really friends with my lover's wife, maybe she could help negotiate a lower payment for me, she implored. We had no desire to engage with her, but her audacious selfishness pushed me over the edge. Don't push me. I've never encountered someone as despicable as you. Stay away from me. I never want to see your face again, I snapped. Despite her insistence, she refused to leave. Suddenly, her face drained of color as she noticed our dogs barking from inside the house. Wait, you have a dog? She questioned, taken aback. We had adopted one of the 3 puppies from my parents' dog. Would you like to see it? I offered. Her reaction was immediate. Who? What? No way. I can't stand dogs. You must be insane to live with one. Count me out of this house, she stormed off, her anger palpable. To be honest, my sister-in-law harbors a deep aversion to dogs. According to George, a childhood incident where a large dog playfully chased her left her traumatized, instilling a lasting fear and dislike for dogs. Thanks for scaring off that lady, Marin, I murmured, giving our toy poodle a gentle pat. Since then, we haven't crossed paths with my sister-in-law. However, a friend mentioned spotting her in worn-out attire in a distant town. Her current circumstances don't concern me. Frankly, I hope she faces some hardships. George and I are relishing the tranquility of our new home. His parents seem to be thoroughly enjoying their rural lifestyle, occasionally reaching out through video calls and visits. They've managed to keep their address concealed from my sister-in-law, preventing any unwelcome surprises. Both appear healthier and happier, as if a weight has been lifted off their shoulders. A few months after settling into our new abode, we received a wonderful blessing. A baby is on the way. I had heard that stress could impact fertility, which may have been a factor in our previous struggles to conceive. Now, we eagerly anticipate the arrival of our newest family member next year. Gazing at George, his joy evident, I gently caress my growing bump, filled with hope that he'll remain by my side through all our future endeavors. Living expenses. What does that entail? My mother-in-law's expression reflected genuine confusion. Hey, Brian, can you explain this properly? I pressed, watching my husband squirm. Brian, caught between his mother and me, seemed to shrink under the pressure. I've never received anything like that before, he finally admitted. Let me introduce myself. I'm Carol, a 37-year-old office worker, happily married to Brian. Our whirlwind romance led us to tie the knot within 4 months of meeting each other. Our families were thrilled, especially given our ages. Since our marriage, my relationship with my mother-in-law had blossomed. We often dined out and grew quite close. Initially, Brian and I lived separately but nearby. However, after Brian's father passed away, we decided to live together. Contrary to stereotypes, there was no tension with my mother-in-law. She willingly took on household chores, giving me time to focus on work. I felt guilty but appreciated her help. To show my gratitude, I provided her with some living expenses through Brian. Yet as Brian's appetite grew, I worried about whether our budget was sufficient. So, I broached the topic with him, suggesting we increase the allowance for his mother. I think we should increase the living expenses we give to your mom, I said, especially considering how much you've been eating lately and she's been doing all the cooking and cleaning. Brian seemed hesitant but eventually agreed, sharing my sentiment about showing appreciation tangibly. As I nodded in approval, little did I know that life was about to take an unexpected turn. Just a short while later, I found myself in a severe accident after colliding with a bike at an intersection. I found myself hospitalized for 2 weeks due to a fractured bone. On the first day, my husband brought me some essentials. Are you okay? It looks painful. I'll let my mom know, he said. That would be great, thanks, I replied. In my shared hospital room, I couldn't make calls, so I asked my husband to inform his mother that I'd contact her once I was able to move. Sure, I got it, he cheerfully responded before heading home. A week went by, and neither my husband nor my mother-in-law showed up. Despite my expectations, there was no contact from either of them. Concern gnawed at me, but I reassured myself, thinking it was just my husband being his usual forgetful self. Then, I tried calling. My husband didn't answer, which I chalked up to him being busy at work. Next, I rang my mother-in-law. Hi, mother-in-law. You must have heard from Brian, but I'll be in the hospital for another week, so I'll need some fresh clothes, I said. Hospitalized? What happened? An injury? Illness? Her flustered response made me uneasy. As I pondered, I realized she hadn't been informed. But why? If my husband forgot, she would have noticed my absence and called me immediately. Minutes later, she arrived, visibly exhausted. She explained Brian's absence, mentioning a sudden 2-week business trip. Thank you for coming, mother-in-law. What did you hear from Brian? I asked. He said he was going on a business trip for 2 weeks. It was sudden, she replied. That's when it hit me. Brian, an illustrator who preferred working from home, planned a sudden business trip. It didn't add up. Unless something significant arose, he wouldn't leave, even for local meetings. My mind raced with possibilities, including the unsettling thought that he might be cheating on me. I know for a fact that our company doesn't arrange meetings requiring business trips. How? Well, it's simple. I work there too, as an administrative staff member. Are you okay? You look pale. Are you feeling unwell? My mother-in-law asked, concern etched on her face. Our company wouldn't send Brian on a business trip. That's the job of the sales team. I'm an admin, so I don't go on business trips either, I explained, watching her reaction. Her puzzled expression spoke volumes. In other words, Brian lied. It had been a week since his unexplained absence and there was no official notification. I couldn't help but wonder where he really was. He left his injured wife in the hospital and lied to me. Did Brian tell you where he was going on business? I inquired. Come to think of it, he mentioned staying in a hotel in Miami arranged by the company, my mother-in-law replied, pulling up the hotel's website on her smartphone. As I glanced at the screen, my heart sank. It was the same hotel where we celebrated our wedding anniversary, a place far too extravagant for a company-funded trip. A throbbing headache began to surface, fueled by the realization of Brian's sloppy alibi. Mother-in-law, this is difficult to say, but Brian might be cheating, I confessed. What? Brian? Her disbelief echoed in the room. But this does seem suspicious, she conceded, her expression shifting. Isn't this the hotel? Hold on, let's confirm if he's really there, she suggested, disappearing for a moment. After what felt like an eternity, she returned, a smirk playing on her lips. They said they'll check it out for me first. We need to verify the facts, she announced. As we waited, about 10 anxious minutes passed by. When I received a call from my mother-in-law, the news was shocking. Brian, my husband, seemed to be spending the night at that hotel, and with another woman, no less. Despite the strict policies against such actions, the circumstances seemed to warrant an exception, my mother-in-law explained. She even disclosed the name of the woman Brian was with. I was taken aback when I heard the name. I knew her. She was actually a friend of mine. My coworker and friend Jessica, who worked in the same department as Brian. She had even been present at our wedding, delivering a speech. The revelation left my mother-in-law equally astonished. Furious, her face flushed bright red, my mother-in-law was ready to confront Brian then and there. However, I urged caution, suggesting we gather solid evidence first. We decided to hire a private detective. After that, I'm filing for divorce. I can't tolerate a man who cheats with my friend. I plan to seek alimony, so I apologize for any inconvenience this may cause you, mother-in-law, I explained. Don't worry about it. I'll give that idiot son of mine a piece of my mind. How dare he betray such a good wife? When he comes back, he'll get a thrashing, my mother-in-law declared angrily, her words offering me some solace. Feeling somewhat uplifted by her support, I began searching for a private detective. A relative of my mother-in-law recommended a reputable detective agency, and I promptly hired them. When I received the report, I couldn't help but laugh. It turned out that my friend Jessica had been posing as Brian's wife while they were away on location, 3 days before my scheduled discharge from the hospital. I dialed Brian's number, keeping it a secret that my mother-in-law was aware of the situation. How are you feeling? I inquired. I'm sorry, I've been too busy to visit. I'll definitely pick you up on your discharge day. Do you need anything? He responded. No, I'm fine. Sorry for bothering you while you're so busy. Apparently, my recovery is taking longer, so my discharge date has been extended. I'm just calling to let you know. I'm borrowing things like pajamas from the hospital, so no need to worry. Looks like I'll be discharged a week from now, I explained. Sorry for not being able to support you while you're so busy. Oh, could you withdraw money for the hospital bills? I don't have any cash on hand, so could you do it on my discharge day? I requested. I see, that sounds tough. All right, I should be done with my delivery in a week, so I'll go to the bank before picking you up. My mom's been worried too. She's caught a cold and feels bad for not being able to visit you. Brian lied effortlessly. Suppressing a laugh at his fabrications, I replied, Oh, is that so? Please tell mother-in-law to take care. Did you manage to inform the office? Thank you. Did they say anything about allowances? He asked, trying to keep the conversation casual. They did. I'll take care of the procedures. You just rest and recover. Hope you get well soon. All right, thank you. See you in a week then, I replied, ending the call. Already aware of Brian's deception, I had confirmed with the office before his call. Apparently, he had informed them that he was going on a trip and applied for my leave. As a result, my boss inquired about the trip and my well-being. After explaining my situation, my boss decided to visit the hospital immediately. Not only my boss but also the HR department came, revealing that I was entitled to sick leave benefits. It was then revealed that Brian had been out of touch for about a week, and he was also behind on his deadlines. The same was true for his mistress, who they couldn't reach either. This revelation shed light on a situation that had been ongoing for the past 6 months, finally coming to a head, prompting them to come and talk to me. I informed my bosses that I preferred they didn't mention the situation to Brian or his mistress until a week later. After that, they were free to impose any necessary punishment. Following the plan, I was discharged from the hospital. It appeared that Brian had submitted another application for my paid leave. His mother, my mother-in-law, received a call from him, stating that his business trip was extended. Despite my extended hospital stay due to my illness, he was prolonging his vacation with his mistress. It became evident that there was no love left for me, leaving me feeling saddened. Deciding to take my paid leave as initially planned, my boss assured me to take all the time I needed until Brian returned. My mother-in-law and I prepared ourselves to confront him. The day before I intended to inform Brian about my discharge from the hospital, I called him. "Hello, how's your mother doing?" I inquired. "I'm feeling good and I got discharged today. It was sudden, so don't worry about picking me up. I can pay with my credit card," he replied. "You're working today, right, Brian?" I pressed. "Yeah, I have a meeting soon and another one tonight, so I won't be home until late. Sorry," he said. "That's fine, don't worry about it. I'll take a taxi home," I assured him. Suppressing a laugh at the background noise of a shopping center announcement during his call, I calmly hung up the phone and activated the voice recorder. I had received word from the detective that Brian planned to go shopping today, so I deliberately called him during that time. Upon checking the voice recorder, Brian's voice and the background announcement were distinctly captured. Apparently, Brian had contacted my mother-in-law, claiming he was on vacation with a friend. He insisted it was a working vacation, a sort of half-truth, and mentioned I had given my approval, omitting the details of my hospitalizations to spare her worry. Brian's absurd excuses left me chuckling. According to the detective, Brian had boarded a late-night flight back. My mother-in-law and I laid out all the evidence, awaiting Brian's return. However, Brian called me with a different story. "Sorry, the meeting ran late and I missed the last train. I'll be back on the first train tomorrow," he said. "Is that so? That's tough." "Got it. Sorry, I can't pick you up," I replied calmly before ending the call. After indulging in a 3-week affair trip, it seemed Brian still couldn't get enough. My mother-in-law was furious, but I found that my love for Brian had vanished entirely, allowing me to maintain composure during our discussion. The next day, Brian returned home looking exhausted, laden with souvenirs. "You went on a trip," I stated flatly. "I didn't hear about that," I said, puzzled. "Ha, didn't I tell you? Sorry, my bad. I got friendly with a client, and they invited me. Business relationships matter, right?" Brian explained casually as he handed me a bag and followed me to the living room. "I'm home. Hey, what's up with you, Mom? You look scary," Brian said, grinning as he plopped down onto a chair. He seemed to believe his mother was on his side. However, as soon as he saw the documents laid out on the table, his face drained of color. Sitting next to my mother-in-law, I pointed at a photo. "Oh yes, you seem to have had quite the fun on your trip with Jessica, leaving your injured wife for 3 weeks. Were you in a honeymoon mood?" I asked pointedly. "What? What's this, Carol? Stop fooling around," Brian stammered, his face contorting in disbelief. Unfortunately, it wasn't a joke. I presented evidence from a private detective. "You were pretty careless, weren't you? Your dinner conversations were totally bugged. Staying at a hotel run by our relatives, you must have thought you wouldn't get caught." Brian's face turned even more shocked as he looked at his mother for help. "Mom, it was a lapse in judgment," he tried to explain. "A lapse in judgment that lasted 3 weeks seems a bit too long, don't you think?" His mother interjected with a cheerful smile. Brian, who had been hoping for help, was stunned. "Here, these are documents for a claim for damages and a divorce application. Fill it out now," I instructed firmly. "Damages? Divorce? Carol, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. The one I truly love is you. Can't you forgive me? Let's start over," Brian pleaded. In response, I pressed a button on my phone, and the voices of Brian and Jessica flowed out. It was a conversation recorded by the detective, hinting at a divorce with me and a remarriage with Jessica. Brian's face turned even paler. "It was just a spur-of-the-moment thing. I didn't mean it," Brian mumbled, looking desperate. I couldn't care less, really," I replied, handing him the documents and urging him to write. "Please forgive me. I can't afford to pay any damages. Well, that's what happens when you splurge like that. Where did all that money come from anyway? I asked pointedly. Brian mumbled something incoherent, and I had a bad feeling about it. You didn't by chance use the living expenses, did you? I have been giving you money to pass on to mother-in-law. Did you? You've been passing it on to her, right? I asked Brian, expecting confirmation. However, the response I got wasn't from Brian but from mother-in-law herself. Living expenses? What are you talking about? I've never received anything like that, she said, seeming genuinely unaware. Confused, I turned to Brian. Hey, what's going on here? Explain it properly, I demanded. Mother-in-law, and I confronted Brian, who seemed to shrink under our scrutiny. I'm sorry, the living expenses, I used them for our dates, he admitted, his voice barely audible. I felt my already icy affection for Brian grow even colder. He had spent the almost $2,000 I had been giving him every month. All of it. I told you that money was for groceries, utilities, and to thank mother-in-law. That money was mine in the first place, I reminded him, my voice tinged with disappointment. I'm sorry, my salary alone wasn't enough. Brian offered weakly, but it was clear what wasn't enough. The designer items Jessica had. Surely, there must have been gifts from Brian. I swiftly raised my hand to reprimand him, but it was stopped by mother-in-law. Brian watched hopefully, still thinking mother-in-law was on his side. You can't, Carol. If you lay a hand, it'll be to your disadvantage, mother-in-law warned before turning to face Brian. Then, with calm and monotone demeanor, mother-in-law delivered her verdict. I've always thought the sillier the child, the cuter. I've spoiled you too much. Even with the bias, you grew up kind, and your father and I were so happy when you got such a good wife. But now, I'm cutting ties with you. Brian, stunned, tried to protest, but Mom, you're joking, right? Mother-in-law slapped away Brian's pleading hand and handed him a document containing a clause renouncing inheritance. Brian widened his eyes in disbelief, muttering, I can't believe it. It doesn't matter if you can't believe it. It's all true, mother-in-law stated firmly. Dejected and seemingly out of arguments, Brian signed all the documents presented. Afterwards, mother-in-law kicked Brian out. He had apparently been misusing company entertainment expenses and was claimed for reimbursement by the company. Brian ended up living in an apartment without a bath, forced into a poor lifestyle after paying alimony and facing reimbursement claims. I claimed alimony from his mistress, Jessica, who, as it turned out, was married. Her husband was away on business, so I contacted him through social media and claimed alimony. As a result, Jessica avoided divorce but had to quit her job, forced to live with her husband's family in a rural area without internet connection, where she was made to work from dawn till dusk. Having lost my parents early, I ended up being adopted by mother-in-law. Initially reluctant because of Brian's infidelity, mother-in-law eventually accepted, and we sold the house, buying a new one just for the two of us. I want to take good care of mother-in-law until the end. Mary, it's me, he said, his voice a ghost from the past. It had been a decade since my ex-husband and our son's wife vanished into thin air after eloping. I'd buried thoughts of them deep within, avoiding the pain they left behind. But now, unexpectedly, his voice pierced through the years. I'm going to move into your parents' place. You're still there, aren't you? His demand was as startling as it was unwelcome. I'm sorry for the abruptness, but you need to vacate my home, he insisted, leaving no room for negotiation. His request caught me off guard. A decade had passed since we last exchanged words, and his sudden reappearance left me bewildered. What could he possibly want now, after all this time? And why was he asking to move into my parents' home with his unfaithful partner? Still bunking with the folks, huh? Any new spouses since we last talked? His inquiry dripped with a mix of curiosity and condescension. Get out of there, pronto. Anger surged within me for the first time in a decade, fueled by his audacity to mock me further. Little did he know, my living arrangements had changed drastically over the years. Sorry, but if you're eyeing my parents' place, you're out of luck, I retorted. Huh? His confusion was palpable, a stark contrast to the rage boiling within me. I made it clear to him that after a decade, my determination had only grown stronger. Mary Kane, 60 years old, and still teaching part-time at a private school, I asserted. Despite being at retirement age, I persisted with my part-time work, albeit with a reduced salary. My admiration for my parents, both esteemed educators, stemmed from cherished memories of my childhood. Their influence fueled my ambition to follow in their footsteps. There was a time when I had a husband, Stephen, but that chapter ended in divorce a decade ago, and now, out of the blue, he resurfaced after all these years of estrangement. Stephen and I first crossed paths in college, back when I was just 21, juggling part-time teaching at a tutoring center with my studies in education. Stephen, a fresh face at the tutoring center, had recently stepped into the role of a part-time teacher. Despite his seniority in years, it fell upon me with my longer tenure to mentor him as directed by the center's director. As I guided him through the ropes, our camaraderie blossomed into a close friendship, which eventually bloomed into something more. 3 years of courtship later, we exchanged vows and welcomed our son Michael into the world. With graduation came a full-time teaching position for me, prompting my departure from the tutoring center. Our journey together as a family was just unfolding, filled with promises of a bright future. 25 years flew by, witnessing Michael find love in Sarah, whom he'd met during his studies at a design school in New York. We rejoiced in their union, hopeful for the happiness they would build together as a couple. Then, unexpectedly, Michael returned home, burdened with something he needed to share. "Mom, you're still married to Dad, right?" His question, though seemingly innocuous, stirred a mix of emotions within me as I welcomed him back, the worry beginning to settle in. I spotted Dad strolling through Brooklyn with Sarah, Michael disclosed. "Okay," I replied, my mind racing with disbelief. According to Michael, he caught sight of Sarah and Dad arm in arm last Friday night in Brooklyn's bustling hotel district. Suspicion gripped him, prompting him to tail them discreetly. His surveillance led him to witness them disappear into a hotel. I couldn't wrap my head around it. Despite being in-laws, Stephen and Sarah shared a bond akin to that of a father and daughter. The notion of them meeting privately, let alone in a hotel, seemed unfathomable. I clung to the hope that it was a misunderstanding or a nightmare, but Michael's evidence shattered that illusion. The image on Michael's phone screen depicted a crystal-clear snapshot of Dad and Sarah entering the hotel arm in arm, unmistakably captured on a Friday night. Dad's excuse of overtime at the office crumbled in the face of this damning proof. Additionally, I couldn't shake off the memory of Stephen's frequent late arrivals home over the past few months. His explanations vary from happy hour gatherings with colleagues to sudden business trips or urgent work demands on holidays. Initially, I accepted his excuses without much skepticism, but upon closer reflection, I realized these occurrences had become more frequent lately. There seemed to be a pattern emerging, one that made me increasingly uneasy. Could these excuses be a cover for spending more time with Sarah? Requesting Michael to forward the image, I assured him I would confront his father before bidding him good night. Anticipation gnawed at me as I awaited Stephen's return home that evening. When he finally arrived, the scent of alcohol clung to him, aggravating my nerves. Summoning my courage, I approached him directly. "Stephen, Michael mentioned something today. Did you meet Sarah last Friday?" Yeah," he stammered, his response lacking conviction. "We did cross paths briefly. We chatted a bit, I think." His sudden alertness and the shift in his gaze didn't escape my notice. Sensing my apprehension, he countered with a question of his own. "What exactly did he tell you?" "He mentioned spotting you and Sarah entering the hotel in Brooklyn," I disclosed, my voice tinged with concern. As I spoke, I held up the picture Michael had given me. Stephen's reaction was immediate. His eyes widened, and he seemed to choke on his words, his gaze darting around as if seeking an escape. Finally, with a heavy sigh, he seemed to resign himself to the truth. "I can't believe Michael caught us," he muttered, his tone a mixture of surprise and resignation. "I let myself get carried away. It's unforgivable." My heart sank as his admission sank in. "No way, Stephen," I whispered, struggling to comprehend the betrayal. Realizing there was no use in denying it any longer, Stephen began to spill everything. He confessed to starting a relationship with Sarah 6 months prior, swayed by her advances and feelings that now eclipsed those for me. My mind reeled at the revelation. Had their affair begun around the time Michael and Sarah celebrated their 3rd anniversary? Despite my trembling shock, Stephen pressed on with his confession. "I want to marry Sarah, Mary. I'm filing for divorce," he declared, his words like a dagger to my already shattered heart. I objected vehemently, my mind spinning with disbelief, but Stephen remained resolute. "I can't continue like this. It's over between us." The following day, Stephen failed to return home. His absence was accompanied by a notable absence of his belongings and a finalized divorce decree left on the table. Later, a distraught call from Michael revealed that Sarah had disappeared, taking the divorce papers with her. It seemed she had no intention of coming back. The shock of Stephen and Sarah's sudden elopement left me reeling. That marked the end of my marriage to Stephen a decade ago. After the divorce, we sold our shared home, and I found solace in a new residence closer to my workplace. Initially, the loneliness of my new surroundings weighed heavily on me. Yet, as I immersed myself in my work, I gradually discovered that time had mended my emotional wounds. Teaching proved to be a powerful balm for my emotional wounds, a fact I only realized with hindsight. The steadfast dedication to my fulfilling career played a pivotal role in my healing journey. Continuing to work part-time at the school even after retirement, I found purpose and joy in the daily interactions with both colleagues and students. With each passing day, the weight of Stephen and Sarah's betrayal diminished, replaced by the gratification of nurturing young minds. 10 years on, thoughts of Stephen faded into the background of my life. While my income saw a decline after transitioning to part-time teaching, it remained sufficient for me to stay engaged with the school and the students who held me in high regard. Their affection and admiration filled a void akin to that of a parent. Additionally, I found solace in Michael's resilience, witnessing him throw himself into his work with renewed vigor, having overcome the initial shock of his father's and wife's betrayal. Any semblance of peace I had managed to find shattered with the shrill ring of the phone. "Hello, Mary, it's Stephen." His voice pierced the silence, breaking a 10-year hiatus. I never anticipated hearing his voice again, and when I did, a surge of emotions overwhelmed me. "What's the purpose of this call? You didn't reach out to reminisce about the past, did you?" My words tumbled out with more force than I intended, fueled by years of pent-up resentment. After all, it was Stephen who had insisted on the divorce, leaving me to pick up the pieces. Stephen, ever composed and seemingly indifferent, countered, "Come on now, what's the point of this? Why did you even bother contacting me? You're the reason we're no longer together. I've moved on, Mary. You're not my husband anymore, and I have no interest in seeing you or hearing your voice. Let's cut to the chase, Mary. You're back at your parents', right?" His casual interruption grated on my already frayed nerves, prompting me to raise my voice once more, struggling to contain the surge of emotions stirred by his insensitive and light-hearted tone. Stephen pressed on, oblivious to my turmoil. "Sarah's expecting," he announced, the news hitting me like a freight train. "But raising a child is proving more financially challenging than we anticipated. Making ends meet has become increasingly difficult." According to his account, despite the significant age gap of 30 years, he and Sarah had shared a passionate bond. However, the dynamics shifted when Sarah fell pregnant last year, upending their lives. Both Stephen and Sarah had quit their jobs ahead of the due date, only to find themselves struggling to secure new employment. Forced to scrape by with part-time work, they faced mounting financial strain. With Sarah unable to work following the birth, their precarious financial situation loomed large. I reached out to Michael and my parents for help, but they all refused. Stephen chuckled over the phone, his words carrying the bitter edge. "Stubborn lot, aren't they?" His laughter echoed in my mind, conjuring images of Stephen's stern father, determined mother, and sullen younger brother, faces I hadn't seen since their wedding 13 years ago. His family, a portrait of strictness, resolve, and seriousness, had cut ties with me after the divorce. Yet, despite our estrangement, I never imagined Stephen as the type to tolerate infidelity or betrayal within his own family. "So, what? You expect me to stay in our old house?" I said yes, but first prioritize your relationship with your wife. Your eldest daughter and first grandchild should take precedence over a mere teacher. Leave now. His abusive tone ignited a fierce anger within me. Had my memories of Stephen over the past decade been too idealized? I hadn't anticipated this callousness from him. Then a realization dawned on me. In a subdued voice, I uttered, "I'm sorry, but if you're referring to my parents' house, it's no longer ours." "What do you mean?" Stephen's confusion mirrored my own, until I clarified. "Both my parents passed away, Dad 3 years ago, Mom just last year. Their house became too much for me to manage alone, so I sold it. I don't have a house to offer you, Stephen." "Ha. I won't disclose my current address, and even if I did, you're not welcome here. Don't ever show up." Stephen's voice boomed with authority. "What about my inheritance? When your parents pass, should the family home and money come to me? I frowned, angered by Stephen's cold calculations regarding my parents' demise. It was evident he had his eyes set on not only my funds but also my parents' estate. Despite his mention of familial ties, it was too late for any semblance of trust. I had already received my rightful share from my parents' estate, including their house. My parents had made it clear they wouldn't leave a single cent to a man who shamelessly eloped with their daughter-in-law a decade ago. On the day of our divorce, they were incensed upon learning of Stephen and Sarah's betrayal from Michael and me. Their fury was justified. They had treated Stephen like their own son, only to be repaid with the gravest betrayal. Before their passing, my parents took proactive steps to secure their estate, drafting a will to ensure everything, including our family home, would pass on to me in the event of Sarah's return. 7 years after my father's demise, my mother followed, leaving me the sole inheritor of our family's estate. While reluctant to part with the cherished memories embedded in our home, I honored my parents' wishes and decided to sell it. They hoped it would shelter someone more deserving than Stephen and Sarah. Stephen's reaction was explosive upon learning of this decision. "Don't play dumb. You can't. This is absurd. They wouldn't approve." The inheritance was legally passed down to me, I countered firmly, and their forgiveness isn't something I seek, especially not from Stephen and Sarah, who've done nothing but cause turmoil. Stephen, who had idled away his days, had no business meddling in my affairs. As I gazed at my disconnected phone, I realized Stephen's true colors: someone who would abandon others for his own gain, then lash out when denied. It was a revelation that my ex-husband, with whom I'd shared years of my life, could be so immature. As contempt simmered in my heart, another call came through, this time from Sarah. "You didn't bother to inform me about my own in-laws passing," she accused, her voice dripping with accusation. But her words failed to move me. If Sarah had truly been shocked by my parents' deaths, she would have expressed condolences or a desire to pay her respects. Instead, she immediately steered the conversation towards inheritance, legacy, and money, revealing her true priorities. Neither Sarah nor Stephen deserved a place before my parents' altar. With that thought in mind, I cut Sarah off before she could finish speaking. Later, I received a call from Michael. "Mom, did Dad and Sarah show up at your place?" he inquired. "No, they didn't, but they called, asking about the house and their inheritance," I replied. Michael's voice carried a hint of resignation. "I see. I thought they might reach out, especially after they visited me the other day." "Michael, are you okay? Did they cause any trouble?" I asked, concerned. "I'm fine, Mom, really. They just made a scene at my door. When I threatened to call the police, they took off. But I have an idea." Michael revealed his plan to me, prompting a decision to break the cycle of toxicity between Stephen and Sarah, not just for my own sake, but to safeguard my son as he embarked on a fresh chapter. A few days after putting this plan into action, I received a frantic call from Stephen. "Mary, did you have a hand in this? You're unusually quiet," he blurted out. "Don't play innocent. What's going on?" I demanded. "They're on their way to our place," Stephen disclosed. "They? Who?" I pressed for clarification. Stephen explained that 7 women were en route to their apartment, his unfaithful partners. It appeared he'd been carrying on affairs with 7 other women, in addition to Sarah. Unaware of Stephen's infidelities with 7 other women, Sarah found herself caught off guard by the sudden chaos. As the women erupted in anger, Stephen's frustration grew, directed now at Sarah. The revelation of multiple affairs left me dumbfounded. "I knew it was you. How did you uncover my secret?" Stephen demanded. "I wonder," I retorted, "considering I have nothing left after my ex-husband abandoned me for another woman 10 years ago." "What?" Stephen's shock was palpable. Turning the conversation around, Stephen unleashed a torrent of expletives over the phone, but his outburst failed to faze me in the slightest. As Sarah's distress escalated during our conversation, she hastily packed her belongings, unleashing a heated argument with Stephen, oblivious to my presence on the line. It was a chaotic scene unfolding before my ears, reminding me of the saying, "Things spiral out of control." With a heavy heart, I directed my final words to my ex-husband, though they may have fallen on deaf ears. "Farewell, Stephen. Never darken my doorstep or our son's life again." With that, I ended the call. Little did Stephen know, the tumult sparked by the women he had been unfaithful with was the very plan Michael had alluded to. After Stephen and Sarah's tumultuous visit to Michael's home, where they were swiftly turned away, he wasted no time in enlisting the services of a professional detective agency to delve deeper into their affairs. As it turned out, Stephen's infidelity with Sarah had escalated into affairs with 7 other women, 3 of whom were married. Michael promptly relayed this information to me, along with Stephen and Sarah's current address, the very apartment uncovered by the detective agency. With this knowledge in hand, Michael and I coordinated a plan. We informed all 7 women of Stephen and Sarah's whereabouts and directed them to confront the couple simultaneously. The resulting chaos at Stephen and Sarah's apartment grew so intense that law enforcement had to intervene, dispatching police to the scene. Sarah ended her relationship with Stephen, and he found himself facing lawsuits from 3 aggrieved husbands, each demanding alimony payments exceeding 3 figures. Losing Sarah, his home, and his financial stability, Stephen now lives as a homeless individual in a park, struggling to make ends meet. A colleague spotted him seeking assistance at a soup kitchen. Meanwhile, Sarah, facing her own financial burdens, was hit with alimony demands surpassing 3 figures. Forced to borrow money to cover her expenses, she turned to a black market lender, a decision that would soon prove ominous. Shortly after securing the loan, she was forcibly abducted by intimidating individuals in a car, and her whereabouts remain unknown. 10 years have passed, and I've finally reached a final resolution with Stephen. Once again, I've returned to the tranquility of my life. While I remain single, contentment fills me as I immerse myself in the vibrant atmosphere of school. That alone is sufficient for me. In time, Michael found love with a woman who has a child of her own. They are now dating with the intention of marriage. My heart swells with hope that Michael, too, will discover a newfound joy and purpose in life.
Hi, I'm Heather, and I'm 23 years old. A couple of years ago, I got married to the person I adore. Despite my husband being French, our relationship was smooth sailing except for the language difference. To bridge the gap and connect better with him and his family, I took up learning French without them knowing. It was my way of showing how much I cared for them. My husband, Frederick, and his mom, Avril, had no clue about my secret language lessons. I not only learned French but also became quite good at it through hard work and practice. I reached a point where I felt confident enough that I could survive in France if I had to. You might wonder why my husband doesn't know about my skills. Truthfully, I was a bit shy. Speaking someone's native language can be intimidating, especially when you're always around them. But I finally decided it was time to overcome my shyness. I stopped speaking French with both my husband and my mother-in-law because the whole point was to improve communication, right? It turned out to be fortunate that I hadn't started speaking French with them yet, because one day I overheard a conversation that led to some unexpected events. "Hi, Mom, how are you today? Thanks for inviting me over on this beautiful Sunday afternoon." "It's our pleasure, dear." "Hello, Mom." "Hello, my dear. How are you?" "Thanks for having me." "Don't mention it. You're always welcome here. I brought some croissants and what do you Americans call them?" Bagels." "Yes, bagels and croissants for our afternoon tea." "How thoughtful." "Thank you. Please, come and sit, Mom. The food will be ready soon." "Did she cook?" "No, I did most of the prep work." "Don't worry." I was relieved to hear that, though I couldn't help but wonder what she meant by it. However, I was too shy to ask. It was odd because Avril usually enjoyed my cooking. I figured maybe she just wanted her son's cooking that day, something familiar. Then I overheard her saying, "I can't stand her cooking. Why did you even invite me over? We should have gone to a cafe to avoid her." "Mom, remember we agreed to speak English so Heather doesn't feel left out?" "Oh, I'm sorry, dear. I was just saying the food looks delicious. I was surprised to find out that it was my husband who cooked. I wish it was your cooking. I always love your food." This left me baffled. How could she say those mean things in French and then lie to me in English? I started to doubt my translation, but I had a plan to confirm my suspicions. "Don't worry, you can speak French if you prefer. It's your language after all. I'll be okay." I decided to use the Google Translate app to record her conversation to ensure I understood correctly. At this point, I doubted my translation skills. As we all sat down to eat, what I heard next shocked me. "I want to discuss our plan. The time is nearing. It's practically tomorrow, Frederick. You need to be serious." The app, along with my understanding of French, confirmed that there was indeed a plan being discussed. "But Mom, not now." I said I'll handle it. Heather, my dear, what are you going to tell her? Could you pass me the sugar, please? She doesn't know anything about the plan. I was just going to tell her I'll be out of town. Out of town? Why? I was utterly confused by what was happening. Despite my confusion, I stayed composed, not revealing that I could hear their conversation, so I could strategize my next move. Yes, Mom, I understand. I'll take care of it. I know how crucial this is. It's incredibly important. If your great uncle doesn't see us tomorrow, he might give the house to someone else, like your cousin or aunt. We can't let that happen. No one should know about this house. Oh, Mom, you have such a sense of humor. Don't worry, I was just speaking English so Heather wouldn't suspect anything. Heather? Suspect what? Oh, sorry, dear. I was just asking who made this delightful tea. It's wonderful. That would be your talented son. I'm not as skilled as he is in these matters. Oh, darling, your cooking is fantastic. Terribly fantastic, Mom. She might catch on. No, she won't. She's too clueless to understand us. I'm not so sure, Mom. She probably understands some basics, I think. Let's test it, Heather. How much French do you know? At that moment, I realized I had to play dumb and pretend I didn't understand anything, allowing them to reveal more of their intentions and true nature. I'm still pretty terrible at French. I only know basic phrases like bonjour and comment tout appels. Oh, that won't do, dear. You should learn more French. Yes, ma'am. I'll work on it. Well, at least it's convenient for Frederick and me so we can gossip about you. I'm just joking, my dear. We would never do that to you. Isn't that what we're doing now? Yes, and that's what makes it even funnier. They laughed while I continued recording the conversation with Google Translate. As I did, I also checked various apps, websites, and forums to verify the accuracy of what they were saying. After cross-referencing, I found about 90% confirmation, confirming my initial suspicions. Now that I realized they didn't have much regard for me and were openly mocking me, I knew I had to gather more information. Their insults were like slow cuts, but what I heard next shook me to my core. As I was saying, this house is crucial. No one else can know about it. Understand? We stand to make a lot of money if we keep this to ourselves. I'm relieved we didn't tell my wife about this. I don't want to share the profits with her. Me neither. Everything has to go smoothly. Your great-uncle Pierre made it clear that whoever contacts him first inherits the mansion. We need to get there before anyone else and start renovating. I can't wait to have a house in California. It'll be my escape from my wife and life in Florida. Sometimes I can't stand her. You're still young. You shouldn't be tied down to someone like her at your age. Come live with me in California. Enjoy your youth with women and parties. When you're ready to settle down, you can. Let's leave this place behind. Actually, Mom, I think you're onto something. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Tears welled up in my eyes. Excuse me, is everything all right? Yes, I just need to grab something from the kitchen. I left the room before hearing anything more. I needed a moment to compose myself and avoid causing a scene. How could they say such cruel things with me right there? It was beyond shameful. I was distraught, pacing back and forth in the kitchen. Suddenly, an idea struck me. When I noticed my mother-in-law's purse on the counter, I decided to peek inside and take her phone. Luckily, it was unlocked. I opened her WhatsApp and sent Uncle Pierre's number to mine. Quickly, I deleted the message from her phone, leaving no trace. It was as if instinct guided my actions. I didn't fully understand why I did it, but I felt a sense of empowerment, plotting to retaliate against them for their hurtful words. I re-entered the dining room, where the conversation about their scheme continued. So tomorrow we start our trip. It's well-deserved after all the hard work lately. I agree. We could use a break. Everything all right? Yes, dear. We were just discussing the lovely weather and how perfect it is for a relaxing getaway. Would you like to join? Maybe not today, Freddie. All right. When then? Perhaps tomorrow. I observed closely as both Avril and Frederick tensed slightly, a reaction I anticipated, given what I knew of their plans. Tomorrow might not work. I asked Freddie to assist with some tasks around the house. What tasks? Why so many questions? Just rearranging things. I can lend a hand too if needed. Not necessary. Do you see how nosy she's being? It's irritating. This is why you need to leave. Don't worry, Mom. I've got it under control. Despite knowing their true thoughts, I maintained a smile, finding solace in the anticipation of the revenge I would soon enact. I continued recording their conversations until the very end, determined to extract every detail. While my French had improved significantly, I still double-checked to ensure accuracy. That night, I stealthily slipped away from the bedroom to the office for further investigation. As I replayed the audio, any doubts about my understanding vanished. From this ordeal, I gleaned that they planned to vacation tomorrow to claim a house from Great Uncle Pierre, and they harbored resentment towards me, even plotting to leave me. As I paced in the kitchen, leaving my recording phone behind, I inadvertently captured more valuable information. Avril sought Frederick's computer password to alter flight details. I struck gold, obtaining both password and flight information. I had hit the jackpot. I accessed Fred's computer and found the flight details on the website where he booked the tickets. Feeling both sneaky and devious, I may or may not have altered the flight details, postponing their departure to the day after tomorrow. This marked just the beginning of my plans. There was much more to come. With Great Uncle Pierre's number safely sent to myself, I was prepared to take action. "Hello, Uncle Pierre, it's Heather." "Oh, hello, dear. How are you? Is everything all right?" "Well, no, not really." I recounted the day's events in detail, even sending him the audio recording as proof. Without it, I doubted he would believe me. We ended the call so he could listen to the recordings, reconvening once he had finished reviewing everything. I'm at a loss for words. How could Avril and Frederick do this? They were such sweet and innocent people when they were younger. How could they betray you? Me? It's a lot to process. I was just as shocked. You've certainly improved your French. Well done. Thank you, Pierre. But now that we know, what should we do? Well, they won't be getting the house, that's for sure. After hearing all this, I can't in good conscience give such a gift to people planning to destroy it with their greed and foolishness. Understood. It's your house, and you have every right to decide its fate. Absolutely. I'll be ignoring their calls from now on. Let's see how they like that. Thank you for bringing this to my attention. You're a good person, Heather. Don't let the darkness of this world change that. Thank you for your time and courage in sharing this with me. It couldn't have been easy. I admire your strength. Take care of yourself. Uncle Pierre, you too. Good night. With that, I felt assured that Avril and Frederick's downfall was imminent. Now that all the pieces were in place, I only needed to wait for the opportune moment to set things in motion. Returning to the bedroom, I found Frederick still sound asleep. It saddened me to think that my beloved husband could treat me this way. If only we had talked things through, perhaps we could have found a solution. Instead, he chose a path of deceit. I took his phone and disabled his alarm. Without it, he would sleep indefinitely, and that's precisely what happened. I gathered my belongings and decided to spend the night at a hotel. I couldn't bear to stay in the same house with someone like Frederick. The next day was pure chaos. I'm certain Frederick woke up to a barrage of missed calls from his mother, scrambling to pack since he foolishly hadn't done so the day before, and rushing to get to the airport. I received a call from him around 2 p.m. "Where are you? Why didn't my alarm go off, and why aren't you here?" I decided to take a day off for myself. That's nice. A heads up would have been appreciated though. Likewise, Freddie. What do you mean? Anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm running late for my flight, my meeting with Mom. Why are you in such a hurry? She wouldn't mind if you were a bit late. You don't understand. Anyway, it's fine. I won't be home tonight or tomorrow night. I have things to take care of. See you later. Before I could respond, he hung up. He was probably too overwhelmed to realize that I had changed his flight details to the next day. Using the Find My iPhone app, I saw him heading to the airport. Imagine rushing out of the house, barely making it to the airport in time, only to discover that your flight had been canceled. I'm sure he was frantic, rushing around the airport. Suddenly, I received a call from Avril. "What have you done?" "What do you mean, Avril? I know you changed our flight." "If you mean I changed the date, then yes, I did." "Why?" "I thought I was helping. You mentioned needing Freddie's help with something today. When I saw the flight booked for today, I figured I'd adjust it." "You're welcome, Frederick. Come talk to your wife before I reach through the phone and throttle her." "Heather, stop whatever you're doing. Uncle Pierre still isn't answering. Try again. He's not answering because he doesn't want to talk to you too. You understand us? Every word?" But how? I warned you, Mom. I said she might understand. So you heard everything yesterday? Yes. Here's what's happening. I'm divorcing your useless son and leaving you too. Have a nice day. Oh, and next time you want to gossip about someone in their presence, make sure they don't understand. Goodbye. I ended the call before they could respond. I had enough of their drama. Later that day, Uncle Pierre called. Hello, dear. How are you holding up? I'm a bit shaken. I just had a terrible argument with Fred and Avril, and now I'm divorcing Fred. I'm sorry things turned out this way, Heather. It's part of life, I suppose. How are you feeling? Well, I finally confronted them, and they're not happy about it. What'd you say? I told Fred he's foolish for mistreating you, and I called Avril out for involving her son in her schemes. And I told them I'd given you the house. You did what? Yes, dear, the mansion is yours. Even if you divorce Fred, it's yours to share with whoever you choose. I'm speechless. It's overwhelming. I wanted the house to go to someone kind, resilient, and compassionate. That's you. It's the least I could do after all they put you through. Take it. And just like that, not only did I rid myself of two toxic individuals who didn't truly care about me, but I also acquired a multi-million-dollar mansion. Watching me gain the house they coveted so much drove Avril and Frederick into a frenzy. They bombarded me with death threats daily, but I simply replied with pictures of different parts of the house. A subtle reminder that it belonged to me, not them. Revenge had never felt so satisfyingly luxurious.